Hello, everybody. This is Steve. I want to talk a little bit about false teachings, and there's two places in the Bible that I especially like that handle the subject unequivocally. In the Old Testament, it's Jeremiah 23. In the New Testament, it's 2 Peter chapter 2. But we're going to take a look at Jeremiah 23. We may glance over at 2 Peter if this doesn't get too long. But anyway, let's just take a little look at this. We're going to just use eSword. I'm not going to get fancy with this today. Now, Jeremiah starts out in 23:1. Woe to the shepherds destroying and scattering the sheep of my pasture, declares Yahuwah. Now, the reason that I chose this is I uploaded a video from Israeli News Live that I thought just put a really new perspective on Hebrews, especially Hebrews chapter 6 and Hebrews 10:25, where it says we're not supposed to forsake assembling together, but yet that's exactly what's happened. All of the shepherds have folded and allowed the state, the beast system, to tell them that they could not have services, and they've just went for it. Only one preacher in Florida that I know of stood up to them, and he went to jail. But you know, if we're watchmen, that might be our lot. We may have to go to jail because we have certain responsibilities. So let's see what Jeremiah says here, and I'm going to try to teach you a little bit about how to understand when you're reading prophecy. There are key words and key phrases. And one thing to keep in mind, that when Yahuwah says something, his word does not return void. Therefore, he will often say things that are thousands of years in the future from when that was written, that are in the past tense. Because when he says it, it's done. Nothing will keep it from being done. So it's perfectly in order for him to do that. So let's try this again now. Jeremiah 23:1. Woe to the shepherds, destroying and scattering the sheep of my pasture, declares Yahuwah. Therefore, because of this, thus said Yahuwah, Elohim of Yisrael, against the shepherds who feed my people. You have scattered my flock, driven them away, and have not tended to them. See, I am punishing you for the evil of your deeds, declares Yahuwah. Therefore, I shall gather the remnant of my flock out of the lands where I have driven them, and shall bring them back to their fold, and they shall bear and increase. Now, there in verse 3, we can see when he says, therefore, because of this, I shall gather the remnant. And this is the remnant that has been scattered, the diaspora, if you will. And he says that he is going to bring them back to their fold, and they're going to bear an increase. So this is talking about the time when all the tribulation is over, and he restores his people, restores his land, and sets up his kingdom. Now, this is going to jump around a little bit, but the narrative does follow somewhat of a timeline in here. So let's continue in verse 4. And I shall raise up shepherds over them, and they shall feed them, and they shall fear no more, nor be discouraged, nor shall they be lacking, declares Yahuwah. See, that's something that's never happened yet. There's another witness that this is yet future. Now here, it kind of changes a little bit. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall raise for David a branch of righteousness, and the sovereign shall reign and act wisely, and shall do right ruling and righteousness in the land. Now there he's talking about Yahusha. And continuing here. In his days Yehudah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is the name whereby he shall be called, Yahuwah our righteousness. Therefore, see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when they shall say no more, as Yahuwah lives, who brought the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim, that's Egypt. But as Yahuwah lives, who brought up and led the seed of the house of Israel out of the land of the north, and from the lands where I had driven them, and they shall dwell on their own soil. So see here again, we can see that he's talking. He's going ahead to the time that the kingdom set up, and he's talking about the seed. If we look right here, the seed of the house of Israel. So that's not the house of Israel in the day of Jeremiah. This is future. Okay, now Jeremiah starts a lamentation right here in verse 9. My heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I'm like a drunken man, and like a man overcome by wine, because of Yahuwah, and because of his set apart words, or his holy words. Verse 10, for the land is filled with adulterers, for the land mourns because of a curse. The pastures of the wilderness are dried up, and their course is evil. Their might is not right. For both the prophet and the priest have become defiled. Even in my house I have found their evil, declares Yahuwah. Okay, we're going to stop there for just a second. Jeremiah is seeing, I believe, a picture of what's happening today. Excuse me, and of the impending judgment that's coming upon the land. And it says his heart is broken over it. And it's basically because of the prophets. Because of the... Now, I explained earlier in another video that to prophesy is to speak with the authority of Yahuwah. And so he's talking basically about the ministers, the quote-unquote pastors, when he's talking about his heart being broken because of the prophets. He's talking about the religious leaders in a future time, the time of the end-time judgment. Now, in verse 10 he talks about the land being filled with adulterers, and the land mourns because of a curse. The pastures of the wilderness are dried up, and their course is evil, and their might is not right. Now we could jump back here and look at the curses in Leviticus, but I don't think we will. But that's what he's talking about there, I believe. Verse 11, for both prophet and priest have become defiled. Even in my house I have found their evil, declares Yahuwah. Therefore, because of this, their ways to them like slippery ways in the dark. They are driven on, and they shall fall in them. For I bring evil upon them, the year of their punishment, declares Yahuwah. Now, I mentioned before that I believe that the day of Yahuwah, what's commonly known as the day of the Lord to most people, I don't like to use that name because it has direct reference to Baal worship, but the year of their punishment, and there's several places in the Old Testament that refer to this year. I believe this is at the end of the tribulation. The very last year of the tribulation is when the evildoers are punished. Okay, and we can settle that from, what is it, Ezekiel 3, I believe. Is that where he lays on his side? I'm not sure, but there's a day for a year principle in the Bible. And there's this principle where a day can be 1,000 years, or a day can be a period of time, an era. So, but this here, the year of their punishment, is what I believe is what's commonly called the day of the Lord, or the day of Yahuwah. And I have seen the folly of the prophets of Shomron. They prophesied by Baal and led my people Israel astray. I don't know what Shomron is. Let's go over to KJV for a second. That's in 13. Samaria. Okay. See, I just learned some Hebrew. We're in the 2009. Let's go back to 13. They prophesied by Baal and led my people Israel astray. Okay. Now remember, I just said that word, Lord, L-O-R-D, that means master and commonly refers to Baal. So I try to avoid that word at all costs. I don't condemn people or judge people who use it who don't know any better. But I think once this comes to your understanding that it's important to do that, to avoid that word. And that's why I try to stay with the correct names. I don't judge anybody that came to God through Jesus. I did. You know, but over the years I've grown and I've come to understand some different things. So now as I understand these things, I have to apply them. Okay, and among the prophets of Jerusalem, I've seen a horrible matter, committing adultery and walking in falsehood. And they strengthen the hands of evil ones, so that no one turns back from his evil. All of them are like Salome to me, and her inhabitants are like Gomorrah. So this must be Sodom and Gomorrah that it's talking about here. I'm not real familiar with a lot of these Hebrew words. I'll tell you the truth, I just haven't had the time to study the Hebrew like I want to. Okay, but what's telling in this verse here, he talks about committing adultery. Okay, and I guess I probably can't do this one justice. Oh, unless I go to Ezekiel 16. We're going to go over here real quick. Ezekiel 16 is talking about Yahuwah's faithless bride. And this is an allegory, and it talks about, right here starting in verse 3, your origin and your birth are from the land of Canaan, and your father was an Amorite and your mother a Hittite. As for your birth, the day you were born, your navel cord was not cut, nor were you washed in water for cleansing. You were not rubbed with salt at all, nor wrapped in cloth at all. No, I felt sorry for you, to do these things for you, to have compassion on you. But you were thrown out into the open field to loathing of your life on the day you were born. This is talking about an infant being born here. This is the infant Israel. Okay? And as we go through here, if you read this, it's talking about how he decided to save Israel. Then I passed by you and saw you trampled in your own blood, and I said to you, in your blood live. And I said to you, in your blood live. I've let you grow like a plant in the field. You are grown and are great. You have come in the finest ornaments. Breasts were formed, your hair grew, and you were naked and bare. Again I passed by you and looked upon you, and saw your time was the time of carnal love. I suppose that's probably an added word here, carnal. But he goes on, I spread my skirt over you, and I covered your nakedness, and I swore an oath to you, and entered into a covenant with you, and you became mine. This is talking at the time of Mount Sinai. And I washed you in water, and washed off your blood, and anointed you with oil. I dressed you in embroidered work, and gave you sandals of leather, and I wrapped you in fine linen, and covered you with silk. And I adorned you with ornaments, and put bracelets on your wrists, and a chain on your neck. And I put a ring in your nose, and earrings in your ears, and a crown adorning your head. And thus you were adorned in gold, silver, and all your dress was fine linen, silk, and embroidered cloth. You ate fine flour, honey, and oil. And you were exceedingly beautiful, and became fit for royalty. And your name went out among the nations because of your loveliness, for it was perfect. My splendor, which I had put in you, declares Master Yahuwah. Okay, excuse me. This is talking about the time of David and Solomon, at the height of the kingdom, when it was the most glorious kingdom that there was. And the wording here, for it was perfect, my splendor, which I had put in you. It wasn't for anything they had done, it was because of what he had done for them. But this is where we get into the adultery and the concept of adultery. He had taken them, he had betrothed himself to them in Exodus chapter 19, and in Exodus 20 he gave them the terms of his covenant, and then in Exodus 24 it was sealed with blood, and they said that they were going to do everything that he said. So he married Israel. Israel became his spiritual wife. And like I say, this is all allegorical, but it's put in a way that we can understand, because we have such strong feelings along these lines. And this is where he's getting into this concept of adultery. In verse 15 he says, but you trusted in your own loveliness, and whored because of your name, and poured out your whorings on everyone passing by you who would have it. Okay, and you took some of your garments, and made multicolored high places for yourself, and whored on them, which should not have come about, nor shall be. Now, high places is a key phrase. High places in the Old Testament are places of worship. Oftentimes in paganism, they would find the highest place that there was to build their temples. It's like the same principle at the Tower of Babel when they tried to build the tower to the heavens. They felt that, and if they had an elevated position, that they were closer to whatever deity they were trying to call upon. So here he's talking about they built their own high places. They didn't build a high place for him. They built high places for, he says, high places for yourself. And then whoring on them. So see, here's the concept of spiritual adultery. Okay, and he goes on and on and on, and says, and you increased your whorings. I'm going to go up to verse 31. You built your arched place in the head of every way, and built your high place at every street. Yet you were like a whore. You scorned a harlot free, the wife who commits adultery, who takes strangers instead of her husband. See, he's still allegorically, he's trying to describe this, and this concept of spiritual adultery. It's false worshiping, okay? And I'm looking for one in particular. I should have opened the Bible to it. Give me just a moment here. Okay, here we go. Verse 38. And I shall judge you with judgments of adulteress and shedders of blood. Wow. And I shall bring on you the blood of wrath and jealousy. Okay, this is the ultimate thing that's going to happen to those who choose spiritual adultery, who have been given the way to honor Yahuwah through Yahusha and choose to do it their own way. Choose not to listen and take this book very seriously. This is a law book. There's nothing left to chance in here. But we have men who seek power, fame, fortune that are out there, and they're leading people astray. Well, when they're doing that, they're bringing judgment upon themselves. As we could look real close here in, let's see, where is it? There's Ezekiel. We're in Ezekiel 33. If we go over into Ezekiel 33 and we look at the watchman, it says, when the watchman sees the sword is coming and shall not blow the shofar, and the people shall not be warned, and the sword comes and takes away any being from among them, he is taken away in his crookedness, and his blood I will require at the watchman's hand. And that's the whole thing that's happening here in Jeremiah. Jeremiah is talking about woe to the shepherds destroying and scattering the sheep of my pasture. Okay, this is a warning to the shepherds. Okay, and we saw over here in Ezekiel 16:38. Where are we at? Where are we at? I shall judge you with judgments of adulteresses and shedders of blood, and I shall bring on you the blood of wrath and jealousy. The people that are led astray by these pastors, by these false teachers, they are going to receive judgment also. It's like the Nuremberg defense, you know, the trial after World War II in Nuremberg for the Nazi war crimes. A lot of people there said, "Oh, it's not my fault. I was just following orders." Well, guess what? Every one of them hung. It is your fault, and you are responsible if you don't ferret out the truth. If you act upon something some man tells you, and you do evil because of what some man tells you, you're more culpable than the man who told you to do evil. And I think if you'll read this very closely, read over in the other places I've shown you, I think you'll see that. Okay, but don't be mistaken. The prophets are not going to get out of this. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. So I'm going to back up a little bit. My heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake, and I'm like a drunken man, and like a man overcome by wine because of Yahuwah and because of his set-apart words, his holy words. For the land is filled with adulterers. Now do we understand a little bit more after looking at Ezekiel 16? For the land mourns because of a curse. The pastures of the wilderness are dried up. It's talking about drought. And their course is evil, and their might is not right. For both the prophet and the priest have become defiled. Even in my house I have found their evil, declares Yahuwah. Therefore their way to him is like slippery ways in the dark, and they are driven on, and shall fall in them. For I will bring evil on them in the year of their punishment, declares Yahuwah. So I believe this is talking about the very end of the tribulation, called the day of Yahuwah. And I have seen folly in the prophets of, I already forgot what this was. Doesn't matter. They prophesied by Baal and led my people Yisrael astray. And among the prophets of Jerusalem I've seen a horrible matter, committing adultery and walking in falsehood. See, here's this adultery again. This principle stands, and that's when we get into talking about the mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. In the context of Ezekiel 16, we know that that is an ecclesiastical organization because she's a whore, and that has to do with spiritual adultery. Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. Well, we know that the mystery religions came out of ancient Babylon, and pretty much everything that's out there that's wrong, all the way from oh my goodness, the words escape me right now. From Gnosticism to the Talmudic Sanhedrin that's coming about, that all has to do with spiritual adultery. Okay, and stems from that mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. So she's a harlot, and she has some daughter harlots. So this is talking about the full gamut of false religions. Excuse me. And this is talking about the impending judgment coming upon the land and on the preachers, the ministers, the priests, the whatever you want to call them, those who are supposed to be leaders of the flock, the shepherds. And the evil is going to befall the sheep because the shepherds have led them astray. Okay, let's go to verse 15. Oh, I don't think we've finished 14. Let's go back. And among the prophets of Jerusalem I've seen a horrible matter, committing adultery and walking in falsehood. They strengthen the hands of the evil ones, so that no one turns back from his evil. All of them are like Sodom to me, and her inhabitants like Gomorrah. Okay, this right here is an interesting phrase, and it's said a different way in other places in Jeremiah and Ezekiel, where it says that they have healed the hurt of my people slightly. And what he's talking about here, that you have strengthened the hands of the evil ones. In other words, people that are committing sin, they're the ones that say, oh, that's all right, you don't have to worry about it, Jesus did it all for you, and you can't keep it anyway, so just go about your way, sow your wild oats, chase after all your idols, because hey, the world's rough, we just can't do it, Jesus did it for us. Well, that's a completely and totally false narrative that they're putting on them, and it's very popular nowadays. It's a very popular narrative because that makes you have a congregation that is going to send you lots of money and keep coming back every week. It's called soothsaying, talking smooth talk. And you know what? Let's just go over here. We're going to go to 2 Timothy for just a second. Where am I at? I'm in verse 15. Okay, let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 4. And let's read this. We're going to jump here to verse 3. For there shall be a time when they shall not bear sound teaching, but according to their own desires, this is the people, they shall heap up for themselves teachers tickling their ear. And they shall indeed turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to myths. So, see, there's a warning in 2 Timothy. This is very strong. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and chapter 4 is a very strong warning to us in these end times. Let's see if I can remember where I was at again. And of course I don't. Okay, there it is. Okay, got it. Okay, therefore thus says Yahuwah of hosts concerning the prophets, see, I am making them eat wormwood, and shall make them drink poison water, for defilement has gone out into all the land from the prophets of Jerusalem. Okay, now this is not just talking about Jerusalem here. Okay, this is talking about worldwide religion, and you'll see it as we get through this, I believe. Thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, do not listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. They lead you astray. They speak a vision of their own heart, not from the mouth of Yahuwah. And see, that's a big thing. People nowadays, when they go to seminary, which I commonly call cemetery, They go to seminary and they learn rhetoric. They learn how to speak. They learn how to put out a convincing argument, and they learn how to smooth talk. The ones that are the smoothest talkers are the ones that come out here and become the Joel Osteens and the Joyce Meyers and the Creflo Dollars, and I can go on and on and on. T.D. Jakes, those people that are out there. Kenneth Copeland, they've got, filling 10,000 seat stadiums every night, and that's because they're telling the people what they want to hear. That's just what was talked about in 2 Timothy chapter 4. They surround themselves with teachers, and they exalt these teachers and make them quite wealthy, that tell them what their ears want to hear. But here, the people are being warned very, very plainly in verse 16. Do not listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. They lead you astray. They speak a vision of their own heart, not from the mouth of Yahuwah. They keep on saying, to those who despise me. Now, this is interesting right here. I want to show you a point here. We're going to go over to Isaiah 5:24 here. I'm going to turn to my Bible first. I did get out a Bible because it's easier for me to follow with notes in the Bible. So Isaiah chapter 5. Why am I getting a spinner there? Come on, you can do it. This is nice. Just going to pull up Isaiah. I did. Okay. Chapter 5. 5:24. I wish I would have looked at where I was at. Okay. This right here is called a parallelism, this last half. And that's used a lot in the Old Testament. And what it is the first half will be explained by the second half. Okay, saying the same thing over in different words. Therefore, as a tongue of fire devours the stubble and the flame consumes the chaff, their root is as rottenness, and their blossom goes up like dust, because they have rejected the Torah of Yahuwah of hosts and despised the word of the set-apart one of Israel. So see what he's talking about? Rejecting the Torah is despising the word. So that gives you a biblical definition, just like in a law book. In a law book, you have to look at what the definition of the word is from the law book. Because the language we use every day is not the same. So this is a very telling verse here. Now let's see if we can find where we were at. Back here in, I can't even find the book. Jeremiah 23. Okay, anybody remember where we were at? Here we go. I'm backing up a verse, verse 16. Thus says Yahuwah of hosts, do not listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. How in the world did I lose that quick? There we go. They lead you astray. They speak a vision of their own heart, not from the mouth of Yahuwah. I looked down to see if I had turned the recording back on. I'd paused this for a moment to find that Isaiah. I'm not that good. I have to look things up sometimes. But with the magic of computers, you can really make yourself look better than you are. So anyway, verse 17. They keep on saying to those who despise me. Those who reject him, despise him. Yahuwah said, you shall have peace. And to all who walk according to the stubbornness of their own heart, they say, no evil comes upon you. And that's really what's going on right now with all these soothsayers out there that are preaching a pre-tribulation rapture. We are in the tribulation, folks. The tribulation is coming on like a freight train right now. And we've got all these men out there that are living high on the hog off of these poor deluded sheep that think that they're going to be taken out of here before the evil comes. But no, judgment's coming on all of us. Even those who are trying to live Torah are going to suffer. They're probably not going to suffer the wrath of Yahuwah, but they are going to be refined in the fire. So anyway, for who has stood in the counsel of Yahuwah, and who has seen and heard his word? Who has listened to his word and obeyed it? No one. See, a storm of Yahuwah shall go forth in a rage, a whirling storm. It whirls on the head of the wrong, or the wicked. The displeasure of Yahuwah shall not turn back until he has done and established the purpose of his heart. here's the kicker, what we're getting to. In the latter days you shall understand it perfectly. Wow. So something's going to happen in these latter days, and I'm just going to go over here. This is verse 20. I'm going to go over here to the KJV because that's more familiar to a lot of people. Go to verse 20 and read it there. For the anger of Yahuwah shall not return until he is executed, until he has performed the thoughts of his heart. In the latter days you shall consider it perfectly. So this is talking about from the time of Jeremiah up into the end, and he's looking in the future. Remember how he started this. Remember how he started here, way back up here. Woe unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture. And then he jumps down here and talks about how he's going to bring them back and set up real shepherds over them. And then he says he's going to raise a branch of David, raise unto David a branch of righteousness. That is talking about Yahusha. So he's going through the whole story right up to the end time. And where were we at here? Verse 20. Look at this. I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. Who are these prophets? These are the prophets, the soothsayers, the ones that are misleading and destroying the sheep of his flock. I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. But if they had stood in my counsel and had caused my people to hear my words, then they should have turned them from their evil way and from the evil of their doings. And that is key right there. That is the job. That's the watchman's job. That's the pastor's job. That is the shepherd's job. He is authorized to teach the people the laws and how to keep them, and he's authorized to teach them the difference between the clean and the unclean. Okay? It's cut and dry. Let's go over to Leviticus real quick. In chapter 10, verse 10. Okay, this is talking to Aaron, or the priestly line right here. Starting in verse 8, he tells them don't to be drunk when you're serving. And he says that you may put difference between the holy and the unholy, and between the clean and the unclean, that you may teach the children of Israel all the statutes of Yahuwah, which Yahuwah has spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. See, so right here he's given their commission, what they're supposed to do. They put a difference, or they teach what's holy and what's unholy, what's clean and what's unclean, and what the rules are. And that's it. I could go over to Malachi 2 also. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll just go to Malachi 2. I think that one says it pretty good. Oh, where are we? Okay. Here we go. The law of truth was in his mouth. Now this is talking about the priests right here in verse 1. Okay, it says the law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked me in peace and equity, and did not turn away from my iniquity. So who's he talking about there? With Levi. Okay, that was with Levi. So Levitical priesthood he's talking about there. Those who were the shepherds. And here it is. For the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth, or the people should seek the law from his mouth. For he's the messenger of the Lord, or of Yahuwah of hosts. Now the messenger is the Malach, the same word as angel. Okay, so you got to be careful when you see that word angel, because it's talking about messenger, and it's often translated as angel. But anyway, here he goes, and he's condemning them here. But you are departed out of the way. You've caused many to stumble at the law. You've corrupted the covenant of Levi. So even back then, the priests are being rebuked in this chapter here. Okay, well, let's go back over to, where am I at now? Oh, there's Jeremiah. Let's go back over to Jeremiah 23 for a moment, and maybe we'll just kind of finish this part up here. I don't really want to make this too long, but here's where it says, in the latter days you'll consider it perfectly, in verse 20. And here he's warning, if they had stood in my counsel and caused if the preachers had stood in his counsel and caused his people to hear the words, then they should have turned the people from their evil way and from the evil of their doings. We don't have to go through this time of judgment. We're doing it, a lot of the reason that we're doing it is because of our own self-will, of the self-will of those who are supposed to be our shepherds. So, you know, and look at this verse here, 23:24. Can any hide himself in secret places that I shall not see him, saith Yahuwah? Do I not fill heaven and earth, saith Yahuwah? I've heard what the prophets said, that prophesy lies in my name, saying, I've dreamed a dream, I've dreamed a dream. How long shall this be in the heart of the prophets that prophesy lies? Yea, they are prophets of the deceit of their own heart. And this is the mainstream preachers of today. And I'm sorry, no, I'm not sorry if I offend anybody with this, because this is the truth, and I'm not sorry for the truth. Which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor, as their fathers have forgotten my name for Baal. Very, very important word here. He says, which they think to cause my people to forget my name. Okay, the name is Yad, He, Wav, He. 4 letters called the Tetragrammaton. It's in the Old Testament over 6,700 times. Yet the King James translators went with the convention of a large capital L, small capital O, small capital R, small capital D. So they're not even in the same font, or they're not the font, typeset points, you know, I don't remember the word. But by doing that, what they've actually done is they've assigned this word master that's used for Baal, Lord. And 6,700 times in the King James Bible, they have done that. But let's see, didn't I see Lord in here? Okay, this is not written the same way as it normally is. Usually this, and this are in smaller letters. But guess what? In the English language, when this letter is a different size than these letters, even though they're both in capitals, they're separated. They're not the same language. That's considered sign language. There's no convention in English for that, so they even actually remove it completely out of there. But to the common person, what they're doing is they are pushing the name for Baal on the name that should be Yahuwah. Okay? I might have screwed that up a little bit the way I explained it. Didn't really make sense to me. Okay, the prophet that hath a dream, let him tell a dream. He that hath my word, let him speak my word faithfully. What is the chaff to the wheat, saith the Lord? Is not my word like a fire, saith the Lord, like a hammer that breaketh rock in pieces? Therefore, because of this, behold, I am against the prophets, saith Yahuwah, that steal my words, every one from his neighbor. Oh, here's another thing they come up with. You know, they come up with all these cute little phrases like love offerings is one that comes to mind. But they all steal these words. Somebody comes up with a slick word, a slick phrase, and they all share it around. They steal it from each other because they're soothsayers. That's what they want to do. They want to come up with the way to say the slickest thing they can to tickle the ears the most that they can. Anyway, 23:31. Behold, I'm against the prophets, saith Yahuwah, that use their tongues and say, He saith. Behold, I'm against them that prophesy false dreams, saith Yahuwah, and do not tell them, and cause my people to err by their lies, and by their lightness. Interesting. By their lightness, maybe that's like weakening the word. Yet I sent them not, nor commanded them. Therefore they shall not profit this people at all. And here's the kicker, and where I was trying to get to with this, is because these people are listening to prophets, to preachers that were not sent by Yahuwah, these preachers are not going to profit these people at all. It's just like the Nuremberg defense. Oh, I didn't know. I was just doing what I was told. Well, you're told in another place to do something different. You're told in this Holy Scriptures, and that means the entirety of the Holy Scriptures. Now, we can't go by Darby's dispensationalism, where we've got the patriarchal age from Genesis 1:1 to Exodus chapter 20, and the Mosaic age from Exodus chapter 20 to Acts chapter 2, in the Christian age from Acts chapter 2 to Revelation 22. We can't do that. The Bible is not segmented. It is not broke up. Something happened between Malachi and Matthew. Something did happen, but it's a continuous narrative from Genesis to Revelation. Okay? What happened all had to do with the covenants, with the contract, with what happened back in Genesis 1:26 to 28, where the original trust indenture was given to man. Man broke it in Genesis chapter 3, and then Yahusha came along and fixed everything, fixed all the problems that man had caused. But he did not eliminate the need to be obedient to Yahusha. That's just not right. Anybody that tells you that is a liar. Anybody that tells you that is bringing damnation upon themselves. Okay? Now, people are going to say, oh, but you can't keep the 613 commandments. There's 248 thou shalt and 365 thou shalt nots and blah, blah, blah. And you're right, you can't. And Yahusha couldn't either, because most of them don't apply to you. Most of them didn't apply to Yahusha. A lot of them are to women. A lot of them are to priests. It's a way that the enemy uses to try to minimize and make it seem like we don't have to because we can't. But that's just not true. We can, I'm going to go back here to Genesis. I'm going to go back here to Genesis 12. And let's just look what Yahuwah said. Okay, I don't remember where we're at in Genesis. Right here. Well, I love this. When I get into trouble, I can pause it and go to the Bible and search. Really makes me look good when I'm not that good. It's Genesis chapter 17. And I want you to listen to this really closely. And when Abram was 99 years old, Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty Elohim. Walk before me and be thou perfect. Whoa, he told Abram to be perfect. Okay, would he have said that to Abram if it wasn't possible for Abram to be perfect? Was Abram perfect? No, only Yahusha was perfect. Every man since then and before then has been imperfect. But what he said here is that it is possible that Abram could have been perfect had it been in his heart to do everything in his power to be perfect. Am I perfect? No. Is it in my heart to be perfect? Most of the time it's not. I'm still led around by my own lusts and enticed. Okay, I've got a long way to go, and I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not what I want to be, but thank goodness I'm not what I used to be. But he said, be thou perfect. And this is really telling. See, this was what Abram was supposed to aim for. You aim for perfection. Yahuwah made a way for when we fall short of that perfection that we still can approach him. That's through the shed blood of Yahusha. And that's what the new covenant was all about. But, we've got things really messed up today, folks. And I pretty much went through enough of Jeremiah 23. I could go up to like Genesis chapter, 27 or 26? I never can get this right. And I think it's 26. Yeah. Okay, here, yes it is. And Yahuwah appeared unto him. This is talking about Isaac, went into Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. And Yahuwah appeared to him and said, Go down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee. I will bless thee, for unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear to Abraham thy father. And I will make thy seed multiply as the stars of heaven, and I will give unto thy seed all these countries, and thy seed shall all And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. That's a prophecy of Yahusha. Because, okay, this has been made unconditional. It was made in Genesis 22 when he offered up Isaac. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws, or my Torah. So, right here, we know that from the record in Genesis from 12 through 22, 24, wherever he left the scene, I don't remember. But we know that he wasn't perfect. He called Sarah his sister a couple of times and lied. And, we've seen other things with Abraham. He wasn't perfect, but that's what he shot for. And when it came to the important stuff, when it came to sacrificing his son, because Yahuwah told him to do it, he was willing. And then the promises were made unconditional. And that's the birthright that was passed on to Isaac. And it was because of Abraham's obedience. Obedience is what brings blessings. Even when we're weak, even when we are imperfect, we have to acknowledge that, repent from it, and move on. But friends, it's very, very important that we don't just follow anybody, and we pay very close attention to the teachers that we follow. In the New Testament, there's a warning. Peter warns in 2 Peter chapter 2 that there will be false prophets among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you. Or there were false prophets among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, like dispensationalism, even denying the master that brought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. Many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. How many people slander, quote unquote, Christians, because all those Christians ain't no different, they just say that they're saved. But that's what he's talking about there. And here it is. And through covetousness they shall with feigned words make merchandise of you. This is exactly what happens with the prosperity preachers and most of the men out there who are filling lots of pulpits every Sunday. It's through covetousness. They want to be able to make the big bucks, and it's with feigned words. It's with words that are just meant to make merchandise of you. In other words, to get your money. Whose judgment now for a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. And then he goes into a big thing about Sodom and Gomorrah and the judgments that came upon them. And I don't know if I'm going to go any further with this. Anyway, that's kind of all I got for you today. But I just wanted to touch this because that thing that I downloaded of Israeli News Live, I really liked what he had to say in there. I can't say as I agree with everything Stephen Ben-Nun says. I don't really buy into any man's doctrine. I try to compare it to this, and I haven't dug into that deep. I don't like the fact that he doesn't use the right names, and he doesn't push the right names because he knows them. But I downloaded it anyway because of the unique view on Hebrews, and especially chapter 6 and 10:25, where we're not supposed to forsake assembling ourselves together. And the way that this fake virus has caused these shepherds who feed themselves to just shut the churches down. Just go along with it. Oh yeah, okay, beast system, if you tell me, I'm just going to shut the church down and we're all just going to stay at home and that's the end of that. Well, it's not going to cut it with Yahuwah. I know that. And I don't really know what else to say about it. I think I've said enough. I've shown you from Jeremiah. I've shown you, laid some groundwork from Ezekiel in a couple of spots, chapter 33, chapter 16. And you've got to get all your answers from this book, okay? You can't just take a bunch of smooth-talking conjecture and hang your salvation upon that. That's dangerous. That is very, very dangerous. Let's go to the very last book of the Bible. Okay, I'm going to go over to see what the 209 says. Okay. And he said to me, this is Yahusha, these words are trustworthy and true. And Yahuwah Elohim of the set apart prophets has sent his messenger to show his servants what has to take place with speed. See, I am coming quick, speedily. Blessed is he who guards the words of this prophecy, of this book. Okay? And this here in Revelation 22, it's talking about obedience, okay? We just went through, oh, it doesn't go backwards that way. We went through chapter 21 with the renewed heaven, renewed earth, and he's talking about his people that are going to be in here. But there's not going to be any sin in here. So, you know, if you're not going to sin, when's the time to do it? When you die and go to heaven? Well, if that's what was to happen. No, you need to practice in this life. You need to practice. If you want to be part of the bride, the Lamb's wife, you need to practice righteousness. If you fall short, you need to get back up. You need to go to this book, and you need to read this book from Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22, all through the end of Revelation 22. I don't remember how many verses there are in there, 21. Every one of these will be important to your salvation. Here's one, 22:1. The favor of our Master Yahusha Messiah will be with the set apart ones. That's the disciples, the holy ones. Okay? What is holiness? Holiness is doing the commandments of Yahuwah. It's plain and simple. Righteousness comes from the commandments. There's no way around that. Okay, let's go here. This is a long one. Longest one in the Bible. 119, 172. 119. Oh, this is going to take a long time. Way down here. My lips pour forth praise, for you teach me your laws. My tongue sings of your word, for all your commandments are righteousness. This is another parallelism. 71 and 72 go together, okay? My lips pour forth praise, for you teach me your laws. My tongue sings of your word. Praise is singing, right? For your commandments, for all your commandments are righteousness. For keeping all of the commandments are righteousness. So, that's it. And one of my favorite verses, before we finish this, maybe we'll just finish on this, because if I can figure out where it's at, there we go. One of my favorite verses that I like to end up on is right here. And this is attributed to King Solomon. I don't know if it's King Solomon or not that wrote this. But towards the end of his life, he kind of fell out of favor. But he was still, you know, arguably the wisest man besides Yahusha that's ever lived. I don't know how wise you can be if you actually marry women that lead you to pagan gods after you've, you know, spoken in dreams to the one true Elohim. What was it, 3 times, I believe? And then we'll back up one verse. Verse 13 is the one that I like. And besides these, my son, be warned. The making of many books has no end, and much study is wearying of the flesh. So don't overcomplicate this thing. That's what he's saying. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim and guard his commands, for this applies to all mankind. And in the KJV, it says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Yahuwah and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Applies to all mankind, whole duty of man. And you can break it down in the Hebrew and get something a little bit different, but you can get the gist of it from that. You know, you don't have to have all the breaking down in Hebrew and getting fancy with it. His word is plain and understandable. If you do good, good happens. If you do bad, bad happens. If you do good, blessings come. If you do bad, judgment comes. we've done bad, judgment's coming, and we're just going to have to live with that. So, folks, I hope that this is helpful for some of you, and thank you for listening. Yahuwah be with you all.